Hi, everyone. Welcome to my part 2 analysis of the hidden true crime scandal. My name is Stina Raven, and the lens I use here is simple, seeing beyond the illusion. I do that in my mystical videos, and I do it with true crime as well. In part 1, I talked about how empathy, public perception, and emotional impact shaped the way many of us understood this situation. As more information has come out over time, a more complete picture has started to form. What I'm sharing here isn't everything that happened. It is the key moments that help explain how we got to this point. This episode isn't about guilt or innocence. It's about tracing how pressure escalates, how institutions respond, and what changes when a narrative reaches a boundary. Part 2 begins before the 9-hour live stream, at the point where pressure first becomes structural, before public escalation, before narratives harden. That's where we're starting. June 19th, 2025, with Henderson PD bodycam footage that captures Lauren and Dr. John's initial report of the alleged stolen Proton emails. Bodycam footage matters because it captures a moment before narratives start to form, when pressure is present but narratives are still uncertain. In this clip, pay attention to what is being introduced and what the central concern actually is.
So she has to be directly connected with the person. So a person goes to Newsweek or whatever, Newsweek comes back down, that's not from her. That's through completely different sources. It has to be direct.
So she said she has files and files of emails and texts, including voice memos.
But where'd she get them from?
That's where you come in. We don't know.
Well, I thought you asked her.
We asked her and she wouldn't tell us her source, so I think she would tell you. But that was the question. Like you said, would they tell?
Yeah.
You don't have to call if you don't want to, but I'm just...
No. I mean, if she's not going to share with you, then I don't know why she would share with me, because she doesn't have to. I'm guessing she's in the industry, right?
She's in the industry, yeah.
So once she ruins her reputation by giving up sources, then what's her job going to be?
I
mean, I could have a conversation with her.
I hear you.
So that's the challenge of being in this kind of situation.
So I was also in the real news for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of understand more how it works. She's an excellent journalist. She's a great journalist. She has not been in the real news, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I believe that if police called her, she might say that I received it from this person.
Okay.
But you know, I hear you, and I respect that. Like journalists wouldn't share, and she might not, but I think she might.
Okay. Control 3 out of 1. I'm with PR code 4.
When I talked to her today, she told me.
But I mean, I don't know. Maybe we don't want to. I mean, do we want to make this?
Have you talked? Has your brother suggested calling us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and you could call my brother.
And what did he feel? What crimes did he?
What we see here is the introduction of emails and messages as the primary issue. The concern being communicated isn't physical proximity. It isn't an immediate threat of bodily harm or a threat of encounter for that matter. It's information, documentation, written material that exists outside anyone's control once it's shared. I'm not making motive claims here. This is an observation only. When fear shifts from distress to exposure, pressure dynamics change. That's another pattern that runs through this body cam interaction, and it's subtle. It shows up more than once. We only need to see it clearly one time to understand what's happening. Law enforcement isn't just being asked to document a concern. They are being positioned as a go-between, as a conduit. Not to accuse, not to threaten, but to contact, to prompt, and to encourage others to engage. Once authority enters the situation this way, pressure shifts. In this clip, listen for how police involvement is framed. not as enforcement, but as a means of getting others to speak.
I just wondered if we could get a report filed so we start having somewhat of a paper trail on this, if the FBI wants that. Number one, and number two, if we could get a consultation with the Internet Division, I think that would be helpful just to see what they say or get their feedback.
This isn't an isolated moment. Similar language appears multiple times throughout this interaction. What matters here is its function. Police presence carries institutional weight, even when no crime has been established. When that weight is introduced, the situation stops being purely interpersonal and starts moving through systems. This is the moment where stakes are being implied. Listen closely to what's being implied here, not emotionally, but structurally.
Can you hear me?
He can hear you or you're on.
Okay. The most important thing is we're about to have, all our hard work is about to be threatened or go down the drain in a minute, in an instant, right? My goal is to get them to stop publishing private emails, text, voicemails, right? They hacked into all our stuff. It's illegal.
This is the moment when the fear is being stated out loud. Dr. John says they're about to have, and I quote, all their work threatened or go down the drain in a minute, in an instant. That statement does not tell us intent. It tells us stakes. Reputation, platform, livelihood, identity, everything they've worked for. Nothing about their lives being threatened, nothing about danger to them personally, physically. When perceived threat becomes existential, behavior often changes, even in people who are otherwise composed or strategic. Before we go any further, it helps to understand what high perceived threat actually does to the human mind. This is what we know scientifically. Under intense pressure, our thinking tends to narrow. Urgency starts to override long-term strategy. Emotional reasoning increases. In some cases, even people with significant training or experience temporarily lose access to that expertise. In other words, panic makes us do and say ill-advised things we wouldn't normally do or say. This isn't about intelligence, and it isn't about morality. It's about how humans respond when the stakes feel existential. What comes next shows how quickly those pressure dynamics move out of abstracting into the real world. Lauren's alleged stalker, which we now know name is Christina, had purchased tickets to CrimeCon roughly a year in advance and had been planning to attend. Allegedly, Lauren had not originally planned to attend the event. While Christina was already en route to the event, an emergency injunction was filed by Lauren and served on Christina's husband. When Christina arrived, law enforcement took her aside and explained the injunction directly. She was told that if she breached the injunction, she would be subject to immediate arrest. As a result, Christina was forced to stay away from the event itself. This represents a significant escalation. Emergency measures can remove participation immediately, even before a court has the opportunity to weigh broader limits or competing claims. This is exactly what happened in this matter. This is where institutional power and institutional limits begin to diverge. Emergency actions are designed to act quickly, but they're also temporary. At this stage, boundaries haven't yet been tested. They've been activated. This is the moment the system draws a line. Shortly after CrimeCon, the hearing was held to make the injunction permanent. Christina was there with her lawyers. Lauren was there with hers. There was an attempt to actually extend the hearing. At one point, as they're arguing what the restrictions are against Christina, etc., the judge makes a comment that is very important. He makes clear that no permanent injunction will be used to silence Christina. She's allowed to say whatever she wants, whatever her opinion is. She's allowed to say about someone, even if it offends the other person. Of course, there are some limits to free speech if it becomes threatening. But as for Christina's videos, she would not be stifled. When a court clarifies limits, parties often reassess risk, exposure, and outcome. After this clarification, Lauren drops the lawsuit. The cited reason she gave was media presence and exposure. Specifically, Law and Crime Network wanted to attend and record this trial. Here's another escalation. Once institutional validation is denied, pressure doesn't disappear. It often seeks another outlet. At this point, the pressure hasn't resolved. Narrative control becomes the apparent objective here, and the scale increases. As I said back in part 1, I do believe that much of the emotion that Lauren showed during that live stream was real. That doesn't mean I believe the emotion was coming from her stated reason of physical harm. Over time, it begins to look less like fear of a stalker and more like fear of exposure. Okay, this 9-hour live was the next step of the escalation. This is the first time that any of us heard about the stalking allegation and the court. Now let's talk about the nearly 4-hour video of Dr. John and Lauren that was released shortly after the live stream that a lot of people watched. What stood out to me and a lot of viewers was their divergence from their brand identity. In all the other videos I watched, live stream or not, I had never seen them sitting in the same room side by side. They were always on different screens, like a remote feed, as if Lauren were interviewing an expert. Dr. John did most of the talking. Up until this point, the Hidden True Crime brand had been carefully presented. The tone was professional. Certain language was intentionally kept off camera. For instance, cursing, creating distance, authority, and control. This countered all of that. What we see here is anger, profanity, and agitation, and a visible shift away from the brand people were used to. There's cursing, there's a lot of anger over one moment from Dr. John's life from several years back. He says out loud, "I'm still pissed about it." He keeps coming back to that point. That's not the Dr. John that we knew. When you divert from your brand like this, it can have repercussions. This isn't about whether that language or reaction was right or wrong. It's about alignment and what happens when tone fractures under pressure. When alignment breaks, trust shifts. Viewers disengage. Brand isn't morality, but consistency does matter. For me, that marked a turning point. Arguably, it damaged their brand, at least from my perspective. I stepped away from the channel, not emotionally, but analytically. I unsubscribed. What's important here is the outcome, not intention. Rather than reducing viewers' concerns or criticism, this video served to increase both. This is a common pattern when someone is under pressure and tries to regain control over the narrative. The more expansive the response becomes, the more scrutiny it tends to invite. For many viewers, empathy didn't disappear. It collided with contradiction. Empathy came first, then confusion. But as more information came into view, things stopped lining up. For many people, that confusion eventually turned into disappointment, grief, and a real loss of trust. Feeling someone's distress doesn't cancel out consequences, but it does explain why this was genuinely hard for so many people to process. I want to pause here and be clear about how I'm approaching this. I'm not diagnosing anyone, I'm not assigning motives, and I'm not here to punish. I'm observing patterns carefully and deliberately. This series isn't about outrage or defense. It's about understanding what happened beneath the surface. Clarity, not reaction, is what actually helps people make sense of situations like this. In part 3, we'll look at what happened next, how viewers responded, how other creators responded, how Hidden True Crime responded as a platform, and what might happen going forward. See you next time.